Psalm 57. 57. Be merciful to me, O God, be merciful to me, for soul trust in you. And the shadowings all make my refuge. Until these calamities have passed by, I cry to God Most High, to God who performs all things for me. He shall send for him and save me. He approaches one who would swallow me up. God shall send forth his mercy and his truth. My soul is among the lions, I lie among the sons of men, who was set on fire. Whose teeth are spears and arrows, and the tongue a sharp sword. Be exalted, O God above heaven, let your glory be above the earth. They have prepared enough for my steps, my soul is bowed down. They dug a pit before me, into me they themselves have fallen. My heart is steadfast, my heart is steadfast. My heart is steadfast, my heart is steadfast. I will sing in praise. Awake, my glory, awake, Lord, I will awake in the dawn. I will praise you among the people, sing to you among the nations. For mercy reaches unto the heavens, and the truth unto the clouds. Be exalted, God, above the heavens. Let your glory above all the earth. Okay, so Psalm 57 is the second psalm in the 6th hour of the Akbir. The title is quite interesting, but also confusing. It doesn't seem clear-cut at all. If you read the title with me, to the chief musician said to do not destroy, full stop, and Micham of David when he fled from Saul into the cave. You read that, I read that, and you read that. I'm like, what's going on here? Do not destroy, full stop. And even it's not really clear, as far as I'm aware, what the answer is. We mentioned the chief musician before, that possibly chief musician is referring to Christ here. But what is this do not destroy? This do not destroy, it seems to be kind of like God asking help, kind of like known as David is asking for help, said to do not destroy, like do not destroy me, oh God, like do not. David's saying like do not destroy me, help me. So what it seems, what quite possibly could be, it's what some of the commentators say. It's definitely confusing. What is this do not destroy, full stop? And it's like it's the tune. It could be like a certain rhythm or tune, how it's sung. The Micham of David when he fled from Saul into the cave. So I was always giving an example. This happened twice, I believe. David fled from Saul twice. The Micham, it could be referring to the gold or a secret. So it's a confusing title, no doubt about that. But I think the point is kind of like it alludes to in the title that we give to the books rather than what's written in the actual text, the Hebrew text. Prayer for safety from enemies. So David is praying safety from his. Do not destroy me, Lord. Do not destroy me from Saul. And obviously, like many of the Psalms, this Psalm is messianic. So even Christ could be saying, I could argue, Christ is saying, do not destroy me. Do not let me be destroyed from my enemies. Okay, let's look at touch of some of the Psalms. It has repetition, like many Psalms. Be merciful to me, O God, be merciful to me. Be exalted, O God of the heavens is repeated twice, verse 5, and ends with verse 11. I think with the mercy, we're asking God to be steadfast, because God is steadfast. We're asking God to be steadfast. You're a man of your God is a man of His word. Of course, He upholds His promises. But we say that, and through the tribulation, I say, and you would probably say also, fulfill your promise. Do what you say. Well, we can have that dialogue with God. Do what you say. Do what you promise. Be steadfast. Don't. You said this. You said A, so you should do B. It's written here very clearly. So we want God and we appeal God to be steadfast, even though we know He is steadfast. But just by us saying it, we take confidence in God's steadfastness, and we have this dialogue. It's a loving relationship. love relationship based on trust, of course, but and we ask God to be merciful and to be steadfast. For my soul trusts in you, and the shadow wings I'll make my refuge until these calamities have passed by. So obviously the wings is referring to a kind of like a bird taking care of like the young. So it's like a refuge. So I work at the farm, and we see with the ducks and pigeons. They look after the eggs. So the female ducks, Muscovy ducks, they look after their eggs, and they're very careful. They warm them up, and they turn them. It's self incubator, not like our incubator. So yeah, so they take care of them, and they protect them. And when we have the pigeons, even both the male and female have a role in looking after the young. And then when they grow up, still take care of them until they can fly. Till they can fly. So they give them protection. They give them refuge. God is our refuge. So it's a loving motherhood we see there. In the shadow of your wings, oh, make a refuge. God is. So we don't just say like God is our father, but in some aspects we remember that God is our mother. In that loving care as a title, as an analogy as well. Verse 2, I cry to God Most High, to God who performs all things for me. Another translation, I believe, on this, I remember verse 2, I'll get it for you. To God who performs all things for me. Yeah, I like this NIV, and I think IRSV, the two other versions have, instead of the New King James, says, verse 2, I cry out to God Most High, to God who fulfills his purpose for me. Very clear. To God who fulfills his purpose for me. So he performs all things, but we have his purpose. Fulfill his purpose for me. And we see that in other sections. God has a plan for our life. In Psalm 20, may the Lord fulfill all your purpose, fulfill your purpose, fulfill my purpose. Okay, and for a purpose. And in the same Psalm 20, it says, "My Lord, fulfill all your petitions." So may God performs them. May God fulfill the purpose that you have a plan for me, and align my desires with your desires. Verse 3, he shall stand from heaven and save me. He approaches the one who would swallow me up. So like the psalm says, and David is saying, and Christ is saying, he shall stand from save and say heaven and save me. He approaches the one who would swallow me up. So the ones who are reproaching us or oppressing us, God will come through and deliver us. He will give us his deliverance, as he did to David, as he did to Christ, to the enemies of David, enemies of Christ, and we see that there, and we'll see that in kind of the next verse. My soul is among lions; I lie among the sons of men, who were set on fire. Teeth are spears and arrows, and the tongue a sharp sword. So we see what the enemies can do, the lions can do. The lion, of course, is symbolic. Maybe in the case of Daniel, it's literal. But we see what the enemy can do, the one who reproaches us. And you see the enemy can do to teeth us spears and arrows. So like the physical spear, the physical arrow, and the tongue sharp sword. And with the harsh word, whatever that is, it's blaspheming, it's gossiping, it's bad mouthing, it's backbiting, it's harsh word, it's harsh criticism, it's spreading lies, it's defamation, whatever that can entail. But I think the point is, like with the character of David and with Christ, because both David and Christ had enemies, no doubt about that. And the enemies of David spoke harshly against him, and Saul tried to kill him. Same with Christ. His enemies spoke harshly against him, tried to kill him, and succeeded in killing him. executing him for unjust causes, complete injustice. But and Daniel as well. Daniel, when they made the story of made the law that if you don't pray and bow down to that God, you're going to be executed. So they had a trap for him. They were sneaky in what they did. But Christ, God delivered Daniel and David, and the Father delivered Christ from his enemies. But I think also the important thing to emphasize, and we see from the first few verses, that what David did, and God and Christ, of course, is that they turned their heart and set their mind on God. Because you see here what precedes in verse 3 and 4. He shall send from him, save me, purchase one, soul him up. And then look, it shifts quickly. God shall send forth his mercy and his truth. So, okay, we're being reproached, but look, God will send forth his mercy and truth. That's faith. That's setting the mind on God. And again, same thing here in 4 and 5. My soul is among lions. So it's acknowledging the reality. We're among the enemies. Daniel was literally among the enemies. And that 3 young men, the same thing. But if God wants to deliver us, he'll deliver us. A lion among the sons of men, it's people that are going against God, not the sons of God. The sons of men, the people of the world, who are set on fire, whose teeth are spears and arrows, and the tongue is sharp sword. Yeah, the sharp. Maybe look at this translation again. Yeah, it's similar translation. But look at verse 5. Be exalted, O God, above the heavens. Let your glory be above all the earth. You see the shift. You see the shift and turning back to God. Setting the mind on God. Setting the mind on God in midst of adversity. That's very important. We look up in adversity. We look up in tribulation. Very, 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 very important. Can't emphasize that enough, as you know. Verse 6. They've prepared a net for my steps. My soul is bowed down. They dug a pit before me. Into the midst of they themselves have fallen. I think what you see here is that we talk about the justice. So I think what Bishop Ambius was saying is that, yes, we see the enemies around us and what they do, but God is the author of justice. And this, my soul is bowed down. They dug a pit before me. But here the key verse, into the midst of it, they themselves have fallen. So whether that's the pit here on earth, the physical pit, or like the pit like after judgment, I think it's either one or both. But what we see is they see the judgment of God, the justice of God, that no one gets away with it, quote unquote, and justice delayed, quote unquote, again, is not necessarily justice denied. There is earthly justice, and even if it's not how we perceive of it, God will put his judgment in eternity. So we see the justice, the eternal justice, no doubt about it, in this verse, and also the physical. So the earthly justice, you also do see that. But sometimes it doesn't really go according to how we think or plan. May not see it, but no one gets away with it in the end. Can only assess it at the end. And if no one gets away with it at the end, justice delayed, again, is not justice denied. It's not necessarily justice denied. And we believe that God does that. They will fall down in the end, whether it's this life or in the next. Verse 7, my heart is steadfast to God, my heart is steadfast. Again, we talk about how Christ is steadfast and merciful. I will sing and give praise. Awake my glory, awake lute and harp, I will wake in the dawn. You see here, other instruments here, lute and harp. David was big on these instruments. And I will praise you, Lord, among the peoples, sing to you among the nations. I like verse 10. For your mercy reaches unto the heavens and your truth unto the clouds. That verse to me is a staunch, a clear reminder of the verse in Isaiah, as far as the heavens, let me quote it properly. And, Psalm 103, 11. As far as the heavens are high above the earth, so great is mercy towards those who love him. As far as the east is from the west, so far as he has removed our transgressions from us. So the furthest points, it's just the analogy of the furthest points. As far as the heavens are above the earth, as far as it's from the west, they're trying to give an earthly analogy to just demonstrate as distant as possible, infinite. Infinite is removed, like infinite. It's just, it can't be it's contained in a limit, finite example. It's beyond. It's just the overemphasis that he will forgive us when you repent. And see here in verse 57, Psalm 57, for he mercy reaches unto the heavens. So its mercy is just limitless, endless, as you see here. As a father pities his children, so the Lord pities those who fear him. Another translation, of course, compassion. His father has compassion on his children. He has tremendous compassion, tremendous mercy for your mercy. And just a couple more things quickly. We see definitely, we repeat again, we see the glorifying of God before actually being delivered. Because they're still in the tribulation. David's still in his tribulation. Christ is still in his tribulation, but they both glorified God. And all these characters, they glorify God before they're actually being delivered. And sometimes they don't even get delivered how we think. These martyrs, if you look at it from the worldly perspective, they were defeated. They were conquered in the worldly perspective because they were executed. But they do not rely on these circumstances. They're lifting up the heart to God, and they get the true deliverance is being raised with Christ. But I would also add that the circumstances did not change in the adversity, but they were able to lift up the heart of God and glorify God. And often they were delivered in an earthly physical sense. So for us as well, we can apply that when we are suffering and in the midst of a tribulation. We glorify God before the circumstances change favorably. We don't say, I'm going to glorify God, I'm going to praise his name when I'm delivered or after I'm delivered. Of course not. That's not faith. Faith is in God, and hope in God is before being delivered, before the circumstances change. And I think David is a good example of that in this psalm. And especially when the tongue can be so evil, it's endless. The saying, sticks and stones will break my bones, but words will never hurt me. It's one of the worst English expressions ever. It's absurd. Words can really, really be hurtful, really hurtful, and evil and sharp, and lead to suicide. Like I remember, I was saying, I think a key cause of suicide is obviously depression, but a lot of it, the people feel worthless. There was an example of a young teenager, I think a teenager or a young person, who unfortunately tragically committed suicide. But he was constantly talking to his, quote unquote girlfriend or friend, and this female friend, encouraged him greatly to commit suicide, and was talking to him on and off a lot, but especially in the time before he committed suicide, like in the minutes preceding, or talking to him, texting back and forth for half an hour, whatever, and she encouraged him to do it. And the argument was she should be charged. Involved with his death. Yes, she may have been like some distance away, like, I don't know, 30 kilometers away, whatever. But she was directly involved because her words were hurtful and discouraging and harsh, and made him feel worthless, contributed. And she ended up going to jail, not for long, but she was found guilty. That and she even said it after he committed suicide. Oh no, I stuffed up. I was just talking to him. I could have saved his life if she said the right words. I think she also may not all been all there, but yeah, it was. You see the The point is, you see the implications of such sharp words. The tongue, a sharp sword, very sharp words, sharp tongue, sharp, very helpful. Yeah, I think that really covers it. Just to repeat again what we said, how we look to God in midst of adversity, what's I guess also unique. And in the shadow of your wings, I'll make my refuge until these calamity have passed by. And that psalm is kind of repeated. That verse is repeated in a couple of sections of the Bible. So you see, it's said here in Psalm 6:3-7, because you've been my help, therefore in the shadow of your wings I will rejoice. So you see, it's quoted there, also Matthew 23:37. Says Jerusalem, the one who kills the prophets and sends those who are sent to her. How often I wanted to gather your children together, as the hen gathers the chicks under her wings, but you are not willing. Christ is the loving mother, and we are the chicks. We are gathered under her wings, that you were. So we don't want to be like the Jews, kills the prophets and sons of us, and we don't want to be willing. We want to be willing. We want to be willing. We don't want that verse that says, and the Lord Christ did not do many good works there because of the unbelief. We don't want that. That's the last thing. We mentioned again the verse here. For mercy reaches unto the heavens and truth unto the clouds, emphasizing, as far as the east is from the west. And the Lord so far as removes the transgressions. Today was recently the very big launch of the new Hubble Space Telescope called the James Webb Space Telescope. So I thought it's appropriate. Let's look at a couple of pictures. Look at that. And the sound pictures are 4 billion light years away. So very deep. It's amazing. This telescope costs 10 billion, but it's worth it. Another one. Look at all the galaxies around. It's amazing. One more. A couple more. And so far, this is the way. This is what we know of. So God will remove our transgressions. His mercy is greater than this limit, 4.6 billion light years away. Look at that. Look how many galaxies there. So I think we take comfort in that verse. To repeat again, for your mercy reaches unto the heavens, and your truth unto the clouds.